Hey, welcome back to part 3 of our gut health series. You're listening to Girl Got Goals with Marcy Allen and Kimberly Blaylock. And today we're going to cover what wreaks havoc on your gut. So, part 1, if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. It's why gut health is important. Part 2 was signs and symptoms, warning symptoms that your gut may need help. And 3, we're going to talk about the specific things that could be detrimental to your gut health. So if your gut's been sending you distress signals, we asked you last week to kind of keep a food diary of what you're eating and start listening to your body's signals. Now we want to know kind of what's behind that. So let's uncover the main culprits. So the main categories that we have today are going to be dietary disruptors, medications and toxins, and lifestyle stressors. So we're just going to jump right into it with the main dietary disruptor that I think we can all kind of agree on is going to be processed foods and refined sugars. So there are so many ingredients in processed foods, and included in that is always refined sugars, because sugar makes things taste good, right? Look at pretty much any box of processed foods are like things that are not grown of the earth, things that are processed in a facility and packaged, and they're very shelf stable usually. And if you start to reading those ingredients, you look at the sugars and the sodiums, and those kind of processed foods are astronomical compared to natural foods. And those things are going to be big time gut disruptors typically, especially the sugar, like we talked about last week, feeding like the candida, the yeast bacteria. You have overgrowth of that, and then that sends signals to your brain saying, hey, feed me, we need more sugar. So then you're in this constant negative feedback loop that's just wreaking major havoc on your gut.
Yeah. Well, kind of like just wording it different, the processed foods and added sugars, it decreases your amount of good bacteria. So like you said, if you're decreasing the good bacteria, then all you've got is the bad, and we need both.
Right. We need to be balanced. That's what we're looking for, is balance. Absolutely right. And that leads right into the next thing is lack of fiber starves beneficial bacteria. So I know there's prebiotics and there's probiotics. So the prebiotics feed the good bacteria, and the probiotics are the good bacteria, is the way I understand it. And, fiber, you get that in a lot of foods, vegetables and fruits have a lot of fiber. And the more different kinds of fiber you can get, the more different kinds of strains of good bacteria probiotics you can feed. So I know the carnivore diet's real big now, and that's kind of on the low fiber side because you're not eating vegetables and fruits mainly. And so I'm curious to see over time how the studies are going to come out with like the carnivore diets and more like the keto diets where you have less fruits and vegetables as far as gut health goes. Because it's my understanding that a lack of fiber is going to starve those good bacteria, and then that could be, overgrowth of the bad bacteria, which we don't want.
Yeah.
And another big thing that's prevalent in our society now, which is good and bad, artificial sweeteners. So I love a good artificial sweetener because it allows me to have that sweet treat on occasion without all the extra calories and sugar. It doesn't have the hit to my sugar, levels, insulin, all this other stuff, but they're not all created equal. As we know, they are a processed chemical, and a lot of times, like you have Splenda and you have what's the pink one? I'm drawing a blank. Like saccharin and all these other things, and then you have more
stevia is the other one I think you're thinking of. Stevia.
Well, the natural, like stevia. Stevia is made from a plant. Monk fruit's made from a plant, and as I understand it right now, as far as the studies go, allulose is supposed to be the best artificial sweetener, which is more natural. It's supposed to be actually beneficial for your gut health. And so that's what we
talked about, getting some of that, but I haven't.
Yeah, we switched to that. So we were doing monk fruit for a long time. Jimmy puts it in his coffee. But when we learned about allulose, as we ran out of the monk fruit, I ordered some on Amazon. So that's what he's currently using. And he says he even likes it better than the monk fruit. I didn't know you could even get better than monk fruit, because monk fruit's sweet. It's about to 1-to-1 for sugar, and it doesn't have that funky aftertaste like stevia is kind of known for. So we're using allulose right now. So
yeah, Kerry uses Splenda in his coffee, and I've been telling him that maybe he should try to cut back off of that, because I'm not sure if he is just like, it's almost kind of like he has added coffee to his Splenda.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit like Jimmy.
Between that and the creamer, I'm like, why are you even?
It's a dessert.
Is it coffee at this point?
Yeah. Through the mini preps, I've learned how to drink it without all. I use a chocolate collagen, which has a little bit of stevia in it. But other than that, I don't use any kind of sweetener. I've weaned myself off of it. But I used to be like that. I had so much milk and sugar in my coffee that it was a dessert. It wasn't even a coffee anymore. And the flavor of like diet sodas and anything diet was weird to me. It had that weird fake artificial taste, but like anything else, the more you use it, the more you get used to it. And now I love me a Diet Coke, but it is bad for your gut health. Artificial sweeteners are not good for your gut health. The ones that are more natural, and like I said, the allulose is supposed to be actually beneficial, are better, on the better side, but the more chemically produced ones are supposed to be really bad for your gut health. And like we talked about last week, when you drink something or eat something and you have the bloating and the swelling and you just know it's not good for you, I have that when I drink a Diet Coke. Is it going to stop me when I go out for a meal having a Diet Coke? Hell no. But I do know it's not beneficial. And at some point when I'm trying for a very strategic weight loss goal, I do have to cut those out, because I'm trying to keep every variable the same, and if you're going through a major health crisis, something in your life that you're really needing to get your gut health under control, it's not worth it to try. Mm-hmm. If there's ever a question, I'd rather just eliminate it. And artificial sweeteners are kind of one of those things where the science is new. It may be iffy. I'm not educated on all the science. So is it good for you? Is it bad for you? It's better just to knock it out, But is it better than sugar? I think yes. Because sugar is very inflammatory for your body. Not just your gut, but everything.
The only time I use it is I like to get those lemonade. That's like lemonade water. I can't even think of what it's called now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Is it the vitamin water?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Sugar-free.
It's been a long morning.
Girl, I know. I know. My brain's just searching for words that aren't there all the time.
But I know I should be able to drink that without putting anything in it, but it's like I like it, but it also has like a little blah to it also. So I will add Splenda to that. And I'll just do like a little teaspoon or tablespoon and shake it up. And I hadn't had one of those in a very long time. I think, I don't even know if I got any more under the counter. They might be gone now. But every now and then, like a Publix has buy one, get one, I'll get some, or I might get a 4-pack at Walmart. But I go months sometimes without even. But I can't even drink a Diet Coke. I know when we go places, you will, but I'm like, it just don't even taste right. I will buy them. I haven't in a long time because of that, especially like if I was going to the movies with the kids. It's like Coke and popcorn went together. I think I need a Coke, but I would buy it and I'll drink a little bit of it and then I'm like, I can't even drink this. Mm-hmm. So it's just gotten to the point, and I would have never, ever thought that I would be that way, but I don't even spend the money on it anymore.
Yeah.
The best I can do if I want to do something besides water, because that is my 99% what I drink, is if I do go to the one theater we go to, they have the sugar-free lemonade. Just because sometimes I do like a different taste of something, and I do like lemonade, I'll get the sugar-free. But if it has sugar in it, like the rehearsal dinner I was at yesterday, and she had some lemonade and I was just going to get like a little bit of it. I mean, when I say I did just like the bottom of the cup, and after I drank it, I was like, whew, I could tell it
Like
had
a
a lot of,
buzz.
yeah, it was like a lot of sugar. And I was like, whew,
Yeah.
I can't drink that
Yeah.
because like we were discussing in the last episode, you don't know until you don't know. And I didn't realize like how sugar was making me feel. And now that I have almost teetotally eliminated it, when I eat something like that, I can feel it. Like
It's
I
like a
can be like,
rush. Yeah.
yeah. And it's weird because I used to think people were crazy that would talk about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'd never want to come off as the type of, you should do this, you shouldn't eat that, because I've been there. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, that is how I feel now, but I also understand when you're in the thicket of that. I used to think people were crazy. I used to think nobody will ever tell me what to eat. I'm just, everything's going to kill me and I'm going to die one day. So I might as well die eating sugar. I mean, this is the way I thought it. I mean,
Hmm.
so I have been that person. I have been there. So for me to say I only drink water and I never really drink anything with sugar is like,
That's a long process. That was a long road to get there.
yeah,
Yeah.
never thought I would be there.
Yeah. Like Olivia said, when she started glutening herself again, as she calls it, she said, I'm here for a good time. I ain't here for a long time. I said, spoken as a true 24-year-old, because when you hit 40s and you start feeling like I felt and you're only halfway through your life, baby, then you're like, I'm here for a long time because this ain't a good time. Let's change it. It's we went through things. We had very different paths. Yours was starting to compete and chasing a goal and just figuring out these things through process of prep. Mine was a acute health crisis, but we
Right.
both got to the same conclusion, which is, you start eliminating things little bit by little bit. You get evidence that this is better for you. You feel better, and you do it enough times to where you build like a tolerance to, okay, I don't even really want that anymore because it makes me feel terrible.
Yeah.
And I think we can both attest that I used to live out of a drive-through window, working full time. Jimmy and I had 5 kids between the two of us. We were both in college getting our master's degrees. I don't like cooking anyway. It's like whatever was convenient to shovel in my mouth and to feed my children, that's what I did. I had no knowledge of anything different. I didn't understand you are what you eat. I didn't understand
Mm-hmm.
my biological processes and how this food was affecting them. I didn't understand that I was going to burn out early, that my cells were needing something more.
Yeah. Well, even, back when my parents were coming up, and even, then I think that kind of went over a little bit. I think there might have been a little bit of change of thinking of health, but not as much. And I know in a past episode a while back, we talked about this, but I don't even remember what it was about. How you used to, I mean, all I knew of was Crisco lard in a can. And one day I got to thinking about it. I'm like, do they even still make that? I did find it in Walmart because I really got curious. But when I first got married, that's what all I cooked with. I mean, you fried pork chops in that, chicken in that, just all that lard and grease, and you were putting bacon. My grandmother, that's the way she cooked. You put, fat in your beans, and you put bacon in the beans. You was putting all this lard. You were frying up the bacon and then using it for that's the way I was brought up cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Watching all of that. I mean, there was so much grease in everything we ate because that's what you seasoned with. What are you talking about? You even had a jar. Now we pour the grease off and you got one of those jars over there, maybe because that's to throw out, to not use. My grandmother used that for later. You were saving
Mm-hmm.
that to reuse it to cook with, you know.
Yeah.
So
Which is
even,
oddly
even,
enough better than vegetable oils. When you get back to the basics of it, the lard is processed and bleached and everything, so it's not very healthy for you. But then even the vegetable oils and canola oils and things like that are even worse than that. But
yeah. So, but even though we wasn't living out of, fast food, like you were talking about, I mean, and mama was cooking, it
fried
still
everything,
wasn't. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And
Luckily,
that's
I
all
grew
I
up in a
knew.
household that my mother was always on a diet. My grandmother and my mother, they've always battled with their weight. So they were always watching what they ate. But on the flip side of that, she was a single mom. She was working full time. She was always watching what she ate and trying to be on a diet, whatever. So if we did get food cooked, it was like plain baked chicken, in the oven. My mom fried nothing. My grandmother fried nothing. I didn't grow up in a house like that. If I went to my dad's where they were frying stuff and eating, I would get a tummy ache every time. But as a child of a working mother, I was eating convenience foods. I was eating deli meats, ham sandwiches. I was eating hot dogs. I was eating, remember those frozen pot pies that you just popped in the oven,
My
whatever?
brother has ate a ton of those. I
I
didn't like
hate
them.
those. Ugh, they're disgusting. I hate them. Boxes of macaroni and cheese. Like, this is how I learned. My first husband called me the freezer queen because I'd go shopping and everything I bought was out of the freezer section to just cook fast when I got home from work and feed the family. There was no cooking from scratch or anything like that. So all those processed foods, high in sugar, high in sodium, vegetable oils, just none of it was good for my gut. And it really showed at 37. I was way too young to feel that damn old, and to be having those problems and
Hmm.
issues. And
Well, kind of tying it back in, just wanted to throw in, you talk about Olivia being young. I can remember, when you're at that age, you don't think about a lot because you feel like you have a long time to think about it. Even when my dad's like, the big one, he's always talked about finances. I mean, he's been in my head about that since I was young. And I can remember in my 20s, you're like, I've got forever to think about retirement. I want to buy what I want to do now. Now, I wasn't horrible, don't get me wrong. I've
right,
always, because we had kids young and didn't have the money to spend, I was on a budget. But, still at the same time, I was like, well, I want to enjoy, some things where he never buys nothing. He still don't. Still don't. He don't. He won't buy a Coke at a restaurant, not because he don't like them, because he don't want to pay for it. He'll get water because he don't want to pay for what a Coke is.
yeah, because
You
they're like
know,
$3.50 now.
yeah.
Sheesh.
So he'll be like, I'm not paying for that. And I told him one time, I said, well, Daddy, why are you even going out to eat then? If you don't want to pay, if you're going out to eat to have a special meal because you never go out to eat, but you don't want to spend the $3 extra for the Coke to enjoy the meal because you like it, then why just not go to the restaurant and save all that money? I mean, let's think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Sometimes we have these weird little habits and these little quirks in our brain that just
Yeah.
kind of
But
set us up for failure.
I think it falls that way with our health. We think we have forever. Oh, I can worry about that then. Oh, I don't have to worry about my health till I get in my 50s. I don't have to worry. And we don't realize what all of that builds up to that. You won't have those problems if you start back then. Just
Right.
like putting money in the bank, you're banking on your health. You're putting it in and you're making little deposits, which is going to set you up for better health when you're in your 50s and 60s. So when you
Right.
do start later, you can fix that. You can do that. And I think that's where I'm at now. I want to live longer because it's also like, I've told you this before, I do not want to have tried to save and raise my kids and not do the things I want to do and then die before I can actually live and do the things I want to do. I want to live to be able to retire and be healthy enough to enjoy life. And that is I think that's what pushes me to want to be more healthy, is because I want to live. Like my friend's son getting married today. Well, his grandmother was at the rehearsal dinner, and I was like teasing with her because she's still getting around. I think she's in her mid 80s. She still can walk. She still gets around. She looks good. She's still in her right mind. When I was teasing, like, how old does it make you feel to know your great grandson's getting married? She's like, oh, I've been old, But I'm like, you know, sometimes I think about not seeing my grandkids get to that age, but I can. I want to
Right.
be that great grandmother that's still seeing my grandkids get married. I mean, I don't know. maybe I'm getting oversensitive, but that just warms me to think that I can make it to see that.
Right. And I think that's a huge thing to remember when we're talking about gut health. It's not easy to make these choices sometimes. Like we talk about elimination diets and we talk about foregoing treats and not having artificial sweeteners. I think you really have to have a greater goal in mind, such as longevity, such as seeing your children's children's children. You know, my grandmother, like you said, my grandmother's 86, and she got to know her great grandson get married last year, and now my daughter, her first great granddaughter, is getting married this year, and then her great grandson has had a child, and then Thanksgiving, you know, they're going to travel there, and she's going to get to see that child for the first time, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it. But she's always done things because she was supposed to, because it was good for her. She would walk every day. She would garden. She would eat healthfully. She wasn't the grandparent that I could go to and eat a bunch of junk. You know, everything was made from scratch, that kind of stuff. And I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. Not that she hasn't had her health challenges, but, you know, she has sacrificed pleasure in lieu of longevity. And thank God she did, because it's paying off.
Mm-hmm.
She's my last living grandparent. And we're very close.
Yeah,
and I'm just so proud of her for setting that example for me. And I hope to set that example for my children. And like you said, I want to be active enough to enjoy my life, because if I'm old and I'm bound to a recliner inside four walls, just kill me. You know, I don't want to live that type of life. I want a good quality of life. And I really think that you have to make these decisions now and pay attention to these things such as gut health now to be able to be afforded that type of lifestyle later.
Oh, yeah. That's sweet. I lost my mother's, which not because of anything they necessarily did. Both of my mama's parents, they died 9 months apart. So I was 5. And I know that had to be hard on her to lose her parents that close together. My mama was.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. My daddy I don't totally remember it, but my daddy's talked about how hard of a time my mom had, and it just hurts my heart. I mean, he's like, I literally was having to hold her up at her mama's funeral, and I can't imagine that, because she was close to her mother. And so I never got to grow up with those grandparents because I don't really remember them. My mom's mom was sick almost my entire life. I can barely remember going over there, and my mother, because at that time my mother didn't work, so my mother would go over there during the day and take food to her. And I can kind of remember like sitting on the floor. For some reason I would play like in her windowsill, because it's like across from the sofa, and it was like a big picture window, and I can remember sitting there and like playing with this little tea set. But that's all I really remember. I think the only thing that I even really remember of my grandfather is probably because I've seen pictures, and you've seen those pictures so many times that you think you remember that.
Right.
But I don't think I really do. He would ride us around in like this wagon thing that he had connected to the lawnmower. And I don't know that I really remember that. I think it's just I remember seeing the pictures of all of the grandkids in there. Because like I say, I was barely 5.
Right.
I think it was the year I was 5 that they passed away, like right before I turned 5. But
and who knows what their health could have been like if they would have had, you know, better knowledge, better quality of nutrition, better nutrients, you know, who knows where science. That could have.
Yeah. Well, see, my grandmother died. Let me see. My grandfather had leukemia, and she had tuberculosis. So, you know, they probably could have lived a little longer now with the technology that we have. But back then. So,
Yeah, that's a good point too that I never really thought about connecting with gut health is like people are living longer these days. You know, our average lifespan is increasing due to the technology and the medical science that we have, but the quality of our lives aren't increasing because there's so many more people in their 40s and 50s even that are having to get on medications for diabetes and high blood pressure and autoimmune diseases and all these things that could be probably preventable with a good nutritious lifestyle and diet and exercise. So even though we may be gaining more years than our predecessors, what kind of years do you want to live? What kind of years do you want to lead? What kind of activity level do you want to have? What kind of quality of life do you want to have? And I believe you are what you eat. It all starts in the gut. That's how
yeah,
important this is to our overall health. And sometimes it's hard to make those choices, but you just got to dig deep and find your why. With any goal,
yeah,
it's how big is your why? How important is your why? How well connected are you to your why? And I think that's the point we're trying to drive home in this series. Not only are we giving you facts and information about the signs, the symptoms, what wreaks havoc, and what can heal, but why is this necessary? Why is this so important? Why are we taking 4 episodes to really flesh this out and talk about it? Because it is your gut microbiome is the driving factor of so many of your biological processes. And there are so many things that we're just not aware of that can hurt, like, medications and toxins. There's an overuse of medications in our society. Everybody just wants to take a pill to fix things. And every time you get a little sniffle or whatever, a lot of people run to the urgent care. Whereas our ancestors would have just waited. They would have drank soup, bone broths. They would have, rested. They would have had home remedies, herbs, things like that to support your body as it does its natural cleansing process. Whereas we run to the urgent care and we get a steroid shot and a Z-Pack, and the overuse of antibiotics wipes out all the good bacteria. It kills bacteria, period, good or bad, and then you're left with an imbalance. Like Kennedy recently, trying to even think, she had a UTI. And of course, antibiotics are necessary in some instances. She had a UTI that just would not go away. And so I finally took her to the doctor and, they gave her a round of antibiotics, which knocked out the UTI. But then a week or so later, she had a yeast infection that, we tried to treat over the counter and it just didn't go away. So then I had to take her to OBGYN. Long story short, she took an antibiotic to cure one problem and then it caused another problem. So you got to be careful, even when you take medications, even for specific and necessary reasons, that you try to be aware of what the side effects of those medications are. And there's been, antibiotics linked to things like autism and ADHD and neurological anxiety and things like that because of the gut-brain connection.
right.
And
Well,
then
I know
even
people's going to be mad at me about this, but even alcohol.
Oh, yeah. Alcohol is nothing basically but a sugar, broken down to its simplest form, and you're just drinking it. And they've done studies recently. I've seen TikTok videos where they take just like 1 drop of a hard alcohol, like a liquor, and they drop it onto like saliva and things like that and see how long it takes to kill the bacteria. It's literally in seconds. And I'm like, you just think of taking a shot, which is it 2.5 ounces
I think
as a
something like
shot, something
that.
like that. I'm not a drinker, so I'm not really sure. But 2.5 ounces in 1 shot is basically 1 mixed drink or just a regular shot. They just took a dropper full. So you're down in that. And if you're doing that repetitively, weekly, whatever, you can't even build up enough good bacteria when
Yeah.
you're killing them all over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. You're destroying your immune system, all of your good bacteria, like you say, you're contributing to inflammation. I mean, I know it's a good time, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
like how,
basically an environmental toxin. That's what makes you feel buzzed or drunk or whatever. Your liver is so flooded with a toxic substance that your body can't function normally. When I thought about that, like people, if we think about that logically, you're flooding your body with a toxic substance so consistently that you don't feel normal anymore. It may be fun, it may be good. I never liked that feeling. It made me feel out of control and I hated it. It felt weird. I didn't like it, but a lot of people do. But if you think about from a biological standpoint what you're actually doing, it's crazy that we choose to do that. And some people do that on a daily basis. Like I think about wine. A lot of people will have a glass or two of wine at night, and everybody's like, it's healthy for you. Yes, there's resveratrol and it's good for your heart, blah, 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 but you can take pills for that. The amount of sugar that you're getting in the wine is probably erasing any positive benefits that you get from the resveratrol of the grapes. It's just, I think it's an excuse just to drink wine and make yourself feel better about it. I'm not emotionally connected to it. So if this triggers you, you really need to think about why you're being triggered right now and why you're getting so upset or where we're talking so negatively about alcohol. Because if you remove the emotion from it and you really think about the health implications that there are from drinking alcohol, especially on a regular basis, then you need to think about what kind of connection you have to that.
I had a doctor tell me one time when this was, I don't know, I was probably in my 20s or something, and it was one of my thyroid doctors. And I was talking about not sleeping, and I was wanting him to run some more tests because of the other symptoms that I was having going on. And he told me to just drink a glass of wine every night. And so I looked at him and I was like, so you're just telling me to be an alcoholic?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, if one glass of wine makes you an alcoholic, you're an easy date. Girl, I didn't go back.
I wouldn't either. Not only is that sexist, but it has no medical science behind it. Yeesh.
But I was like, he was like, I could run all of these tests and do all of this stuff, but I don't think it's necessary.
Oh, you don't think I may have a thyroid issue?
Well, we knew
which is probably what it ended up being.
Well, he was my thyroid doctor, so he already knew I had issues, but I had other things going on with me. And honestly, was some of it probably the fact that I was overworked. My children were young. I had a husband at that time that didn't help, and I was trying to be perfect and do all of the things because this is the way he made me feel. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be done. You had to be. And some of that went from my childhood over to a man that treated me that way. So along with having a thyroid that wasn't functioning properly, that makes you tired anyway, and then you're trying to do all of the things and be perfect and run a business. And anyway, it was just the perfect storm. And I realized at this point that's what it was, but I was young and I was just depressed and overexhausted.
Yeah, so his prescription to you was climb into a bottle of wine and
exactly.
Which I mean, that's old school. That's old. He was probably older. That's old school thinking. They used to prescribe, what was it, Quaaludes and shit for housewives back in the day. And I mean, you just drink and smoke and put a Band-Aid on it, slap a Band-Aid on it and keep going, especially for women. Women's health is so understudied and so understood, not understood well. I think we're just now starting, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but we're just now starting to get to the generation to where we're speaking out and where we're talking about these things as if they're not normal, as if we should not just have to suffer in silence anymore and put up with shit like this. And I love that you mentioned the stressors that you were going through in your life at the time, because that's exactly my next point is lifestyle stressors, because chronic stress alters the gut motility and microbiome composition. I mean, it's science that if you are stressed, that your body doesn't function as well. If you lose sleep, then that disrupts your circadian rhythms, which helps regulate digestion. There's so many things that, like we talk about the gut brain connection. Not only is your gut feeding serotonin to your brain, But if your brain is starved of peace and of
Mm-hmm.
rest and of balance and of positive thoughts, then that, top down affects everything. Mind, body,
Right.
spirit. I will die on this hill is all connected. You cannot separate your emotions from your thoughts, from your physical. It affects everything. They've done studies where they took water molecules and they spoke positive words to them and studied them under a microscope. Or I think they froze them and studied them under a microscope, and they formed like beautiful ice crystals in a certain formation, and then they spoke negative words to them and did the same thing, and it was like not formed and jagged and misaligned. And you know everything in your life, whether it's coming from an external source of pressure, maybe it's your job, maybe it's a stressed family relationship, maybe it's a bad marriage, maybe it's a broken, relationship between your children, or whatever that may be, it's stressing you. Or whether it's internal, whether you've internalized all those years of abuse and you have these patterns that you're stuck in, these things affect your gut health. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's cliches are cliches for a reason, because they're true. There's always been a connection, like a nervous stomach. You hear that people who have high anxiety, they're either overeating to where it's crazy weight gain, or they're undereating to where they can't eat anything and they're like skinny and neurotic. You always know
Mm-hmm.
these two polar opposites. And then there's probably you, like us. I say you as in us, to where we're somewhere in between. Yes, we know these people have problems at the polar opposites, but we're not paying attention to our own problems because they're maybe not detrimental enough. But if you start keeping that diary, if you start paying attention to your eating habits, when you're picking up certain foods, why you're picking up certain foods, how these certain foods are affecting you, you're going to notice these rhythms and these
Mm-hmm.
habits, and even a
Yeah. I
sedentary
mean,
lifestyle.
it is weird because I really didn't think about it when I said that. So I'm glad you picked up on it because, I did have it wrote down that the parts of our life that could affect your gut microbiome, and it's high stress, too little sleep, eating a Western diet and high processed foods and sugar, and of course taking antibiotics. But
Mm-hmm.
the other three is everything that was going on in my life, you
Yes.
know,
When
and
you said that,
so
it was like a ding, 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 ding. I was
yeah.
like,
And
yeah,
I'm
that's
naming
it.
off everything and I
Yeah,
told you back then I wasn't going to the bathroom, you know,
yeah.
which
Because you're
was,
probably in
oh,
fight and flight, and when you're in fight and flight and you have that adrenaline, your body shuts down certain processes, because ancestors running from a lion is always the example. If you're having to run from a lion and hide and save your life, you don't need to be stopping to take a shit,
right.
basically. So your body is going to shut down. That you're either in what they say, rest, digest, and heal, or you're in fight and flight. In our modern lifestyles, if you're always living in fight and flight, you're never in rest, digest, and heal, then that's obviously going to throw your gut off balance.
I think a lot of women are like that because I have this thing with, Kerry. Every morning he gets up, he's going to go sit. He's kill me for saying this, but he'll be like, "Oh, well, if I tell him I think I need to go, or I feel like," he'll say, "Well, go sit on the toilet. The water will draw it out." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't. If I But I would think that I'm no different than most women. We have so much going on in our brain that if I don't feel it like right there, like I got to go, if I'm just sitting there, I can't relax, like you're saying, enough to go because my brain's going of I'm wasting time. While I'm sitting here and nothing's going on, I could turn on the laundry. I need to swat the laundry over. I need to do this. Oh, I need to go do, and your mind's just, I always tell him it's like I'm like a computer with all these tabs open.
Yeah.
At any time I have 50 tabs up and my brain's, okay, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And I feel like I'm wasting time. I'd
Ain't
rather
nobody but a
be,
man got 45 minutes to sit on the freaking toilet and
yes.
just watch reels on Facebook and let the
And
water
even
draw this poop out.
afterwards, I'm like, why are you sitting on a hot pile of dong dong? Wipe and get up. well, I might still have to go. Well, then come back.
Exactly. That's the same thing Jimmy says. I may not be done. I'm making sure I'm done. I was like, I was done 30 minutes ago. Like,
yeah, it comes out. I wipe and get up. I have other things to do. But, and it's like, I'll even hear comedians talk about it. So I'm like, it's got to be all men.
It is. So, but they compartmentalize. That's like a ritual to them. It's like a self-care ritual. So maybe we need to start having this self-care ritual where we do something we enjoy on the toilet and just let the water draw it out every day. Oh my God. I'm going to start that tomorrow. I'm going to take up like needlepoint or something. I'm going to start crocheting or something on the toilet. Something boring. Something just meditative.
You let me know how that goes.
Okay, I will. But another thing that I've noticed, like a sedentary lifestyle can throw off your gut rhythm, because if I get up and walk, usually 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have to poop after that walk. And they talk about, walking at least 10 minutes after every meal. We call it our digestion walk. Me and Brenna will get up and go for a walk after we eat breakfast, just, 5 minutes, whatever, just to get some steps in. There's something, and there's actual science behind it. And I don't remember the exact science, but there's something between like the calf muscles being activated that activates some kind of hormone or something secreted, and then it like gets your gut going. And our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made. Our bodies are so intelligent. Our bodies are more intelligent than our logical minds are, to be honest with you. I'm learning. And there's something about getting up, moving, walking, getting your juices going that get that gut to go in also. Mm-hmm. So,
well, it makes sense because, any research that you do on this, that is one of the things that they will say to help your gut health is to exercise. So, to do a little walk or to do something not strenuous right after you eat, that's, but like you're saying,
right. You want to go out and do burpees. Yeah.
To get that digestive system moving,
right?
It makes sense.
Just increase blood flow. I think increase blood flow, increase oxygen, increase nutrients to your. It's just, but like you said, common sense. We don't have to know the science behind it all. You can probably Google it, but and you don't need to overhaul your life. As we wrap up, one takeaway we can take from this is start by noticing patterns. Start by looking back at your food journal. Start by noticing things that you do habitually, noticing signs and symptoms, and just pick one thing. What's one thing that you could reduce this week? What's one thing that on the list of things that we said that could be harmful to your gut bacteria? What can you eliminate? What's one thing you can add? Sometimes mentally it's better for us to not take away things, but it's better for us to add good things. So can you add some different types of fiber to your diet? Can you add a digestion walk, after each meal or after some of your meals? Can you add more whole foods, to and once you start adding good things, I found that you naturally eliminate the less beneficial things. So It's kind of like a mental reverse psychology, if you will. What's one thing you can take away this week? What's one thing that you can add, or both?
Well, I would say a simple thing, which is not food wise, but talking about what we just talked about, sometimes taking away some of your stress is hard. If you're in a bad marriage, to eliminate that stress right at that moment is not possible. If you're at a job that's a stressful job, that might be something hard to eliminate some of that. But you can always try to go to bed earlier, get better sleep. We all know that I have been working on that this year. And I can tell a difference when I get a good night's sleep of how my productivity and my brain and everything, so that is one thing that you can do, is we can try to get more sleep. And as far as the stress, take up knitting on the toilet like Marcy.
That's right. That's one thing I want to add this week. No, I don't have any knitting supplies, but I don't know. I got to think of something more productive than doom scrolling. I do
But
learn
you
a lot
might
on
could,
TikTok though.
yeah. Well, if you can't eliminate all stress, but maybe there are certain um, stressors that you could avoid.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
would just be like everybody's, different, but you could try to do things if there are things that you could avoid. If there's that one person at work, you know, try to avoid. There's other things that we could do. But mine is I've been trying to get up on certain mornings that I have a little extra time. I try to get up and take a bath and just that's kind of
Relax.
how, yeah, yeah. And maybe you would have time to do that in the evening. Maybe if you have kids, you can get them to bed and you could take a hot bath, and that could be your time to, just relieve that stress and get ready for bed. Because I think sometimes a bath like that and decompressing and then getting a good night's sleep always helps. So
Yeah, for
just
sure.
an idea.
Yeah. So think about it. What's one thing you're going to add this week, or what's one thing that you're going to take away that can benefit your gut bacteria? And until next time, just remember progress isn't perfect. Bye, guys.